China just showed the world a stealth jet with no fins, which means either the flight computer is insane or the mission is. Is this the J-50, China's answer to the US F-35? The J-50 is one of those aircraft that sounds fake when you say it out loud. A cranked lambda wing, no normal tail setup, and wingtips that look like they're doing the job control surfaces usually handle. So the second a clean silhouette hits the internet, people jump straight to, wait, is this China's F-35? But that comparison doesn't really hold. When most people say China's F-35, they mean a multi-role strike jet that collects intel, tracks targets, and plugs into a huge network so everyone shares the same battlefield picture. That's the F-35's whole thing, winning through information and coordination. What we've seen of the J-50 points in a different direction. It looks more like a heavier stealth fighter concept, designed to survive in rougher airspace and stay effective when long-range threats and modern air defenses are stacked against you. And there's one detail that matters before you even argue about roles. J-50 isn't an official name. It's just what outsiders are calling it because China hasn't confirmed a designation. So instead of a neat rollout with specs and press photos, we're piecing it together from glimpses. The first real moment came in late December 2024 when a Shenyang Aircraft Corporation prototype was spotted near facilities in Liaoning. That alone would have been big. But it landed harder because it wasn't the only strange shape showing up. Around the same time, a separate tailless stealth design from Chengdu, often labeled J-36, also appeared. Two different next-gen airframes popping into view that close together feels like a signal. And it didn't look like a static display either. Reports described it in a flight test context, with a flanker-type aircraft, something like a J-16 flying chase. That's a serious test setup, the kind you use when the aircraft is actually being flown and monitored. After that, the trickle turned into a pattern. More images appeared through 2025, and the biggest early debate was simple. Is it even manned? The canopy details were unclear at first, but later shots pushed things toward the most straightforward answer. It appears to be a single-seat aircraft with a pilot. By September 2025, the clearest shots yet started spreading online. The war zone didn't treat them like proof, more like interesting but unconfirmed, yet they pointed out something important. The images lined up with what had already been seen, so they weren't easy to dismiss. The big difference was up front. No air data boom on the nose, and that alone isn't shady. Test aircraft change configurations as engineers move from instrumented and messy to cleaner and closer to the real shape. As 2025 went on, more details became easier to pick out. A long, sharp nose, a chin-mounted electro-optical turret housing, and small panels along the forward fuselage. Then, later that same month, more photos hinted there might even be a second prototype seen taxiing inside Shenyang, also without the boom. You still don't get an official story, but the pattern looks like a program that's alive and moving forward. And then it got bigger than the photos. In November 2025, the war zone reported satellite imagery showing both the Chengdu design and the Shenyang design at a remote experimental airfield near Lop Nur during August and September 2025. Two different next-gen aircraft turning up at the same secluded test site suggests this isn't just a company project. It points to coordinated military-backed testing in a place chosen for privacy and control. So what are we actually looking at? Start with the wing, because it tells you the mindset before you ever argue about engines. The J-50 appears to use a cranked lambda-style planform, sharp sweep, clean lines, and a trailing edge that runs back toward the engine area. That shape isn't just for looks. It supports efficiency at speed, helps manage stability, and keeps the overall outline clean for stealth by avoiding extra protrusions. But the loudest statement is what it leaves out. No vertical tails. That's great for stealth, but it makes control harder, especially at slow speeds or high angles of attack when airflow gets messy. That's where the J-50's standout feature comes in. Swiveling wingtips acting like control surfaces. In the clearest side views, those tips look deflected downward, as if the jet is using the ends of its wings to help steer and stay stable. That's why people keep slapping the 6th gen label on this thing. Not because China has officially called it that, but because a tailless setup like this only works if the flight computer is doing serious work non-stop. The real magic isn't just the shape, it's the software keeping the jet stable and controllable, but that choice comes with a cost. Any moving surface creates gaps and seams, and those seams can bounce radar. Stealth likes clean, smooth lines, so the likely play is simple. Keep the wingtips mostly neutral when you want the lowest signature and only swing them harder when you need maximum control. That's a clear design mindset. Stay stealthy when you can and stay alive when you have to. Now look at the front. The nose is long and sharp with those hard angled lines, and the canopy sits blended into the body instead of popping up like an old-school bubble. Under the nose, later images show a housing for an electro-optical sensor. That matters because it lets the jet track targets without blasting radar, exactly what you want when you're trying to watch quietly. The intakes follow the same idea. In the clearer shots, they look trapezoidal and seem to use a diverterless supersonic inlet. That's a stealth-friendly setup because it helps hide the engine face from radar and avoids extra structures that add drag and reflections. Now, swing to the rear. The exhaust area is another giveaway. In the photos, the nozzles look flat and 2D, with serrated edges around the housing, exactly the kind of shape you use when you're trying to balance stealth with performance. You can't confirm every detail from a few images, but the reporting has been steady enough that thrust vectoring feels like an intentional direction, not just internet hype. And if it really is thrust vectoring, it gives the jet another way to stay controlled when it's being pushed hard. Now zoom out, because the size tells its own story. This doesn't look like a small strike jet. It's often described as a heavier design, with some estimates putting it around 22 meters long. More size usually means more internal space, more fuel, more room for sensors and bays, and more capacity for systems that need power and cooling. In a region where missions can mean huge distances over ocean and wide patrol areas, that space can turn into real endurance and reach. Then, look at the landing gear. It appears to use a tricycle setup with a twin-wheel nose gear, and it looks sturdy. That's why the carrier talk keeps coming back. Stronger gear can hint at the kind of punishment you'd expect from deck landings. You can't prove it's carrier capable from photos alone, but there are enough cues to keep the idea alive. Weapons are where you have to stay careful. People love to stare at panel lines and start naming exact loadouts, and that's how bad info spreads. But the bigger point is simple. A stealth jet like this would want internal bays. Analysts have pointed to what look like belly bays and smaller side bay features. Even if you can't confirm what every door does, the logic holds. If you're trying to stay low observable, you don't want missiles hanging out in the airflow. When people talk about missiles, the same names come up: PL-15, PL-21, and the larger PL-17. The PL-17 is usually described as a heavy long-range air-to-air weapon. Exact range numbers are all over the place, so don't cling to any one figure. The real takeaway is the role. This jet is being framed as something that wants to start the fight from far away and threaten high-value targets before the enemy can get close. And that points to the real why. Air combat today isn't built around turning duels as the default. The edge usually goes to whoever finds first, tracks first, and shoots first, often from beyond visual range. In that kind of fight, long-range sensors and long-range weapons aren't extra features. They're the strategy. But fights don't always stay clean. Plans collide, formations blur together, and a battle can compress fast. That's why a next-gen fighter has to stay dangerous at distance and stay stable when things get close and chaotic. And that's what the J-50's layout feels built for. Now, sensors. This is where the F-35 comparison actually matters if you focus on the right part. The advantage isn't just being hard to see, it's decision speed, taking raw data and turning it into a clear picture before the other side can respond. That's the direction analysts keep pointing with the J-50. They talk about advanced radar, electro-optical systems, and a networked way of fighting. In some side views, there are small bulges along the spine behind the cockpit. Nobody can confirm what they are from photos, but the usual guesses are doors or housings for sensing and communications. Either way, the point is the same. This aircraft is being shaped to gather information and move fast with it. That idea gets even bigger when the J-50 is linked to unmanned teammates like the CH-7, plus a wider web of satellites and ground sensors. That's the system of systems concept, where the jet isn't just firing weapons, it's part of a bigger machine that shares data and squeezes the enemy from multiple angles. Then there's AI, the word people treat like a magic spell. The practical version is simpler. Automation that reduces workload and helps the pilot make better calls under pressure. Some claims go further, talking about systems that process huge data streams, suggest routes, prioritize targets, and even support switching between manned and unmanned operation with onboard intelligence, handling everything from flight management to combat moves. You can't treat that as confirmed from sightings alone. But it does tell you what China wants this platform to represent. Not just stealth and speed, but smart integration inside the fight. So why let the world see any of it right now? Because prototypes don't just test hardware, they test the story. Public sightings and leaks can shape how other countries think, what they fund, how fast they move, what they panic about. And at home, it sends a message too. This isn't just imitation, it's a program with its own direction. The J-50 also makes more sense when you stop treating it like a one-off mystery jet. With both the J-36 and the J-50 surfacing as prototypes, some analysts see the outline of a two-part future force. One aircraft tuned for deep, long missions, big, heavy, built around range and stealth, and another built to survive inside contested airspace where control and adaptability matter. That isn't confirmed doctrine, but it follows an old rule of air power. Don't bet everything on one perfect jet, build a team. And China isn't building that team from zero. The J-20 is already the backbone of its fifth-gen fleet, often framed as an air-dominant fighter more than a do-everything. Strike jet. Put that next to the J-50 and the F-35 clone label starts to feel lazy. This looks less like copying and more like layering, different platforms, different roles, connected by information and fast decision-making. So is the J-50 China's answer to the F-35? If you mean a direct twin, no. The tailless design, heavier proportions, and unusual control approach point to a different set of priorities. But if you mean it's a response to the world the F-35 was built for, where connectivity and information decide fights, then yes. That's the part to sit with. The J-50 doesn't feel important just because it looks futuristic. It feels important because it looks like a deliberate move toward a future where awareness, reach, and coordination decide who owns the sky. If you want more breakdowns like this, clean, grounded, and focused on what these platforms are actually built to do, hit like, subscribe, and stick with us. And tell us in the comments, does the next air war get decided by the jet, or by the system connecting everything behind it?